So hello, everybody, and welcome to the Marketing Blab with Deborah. I'm Deborah Jason. I am the author of Millionaire Marketing on a Shoestring Budget and DeborahJason.com. And today, I usually start the show saying I'm excited, and today is no exception because my guest, Ellen Finkelstein, this is her first Blab. So be sure you give her some props and cheer her on. Ellen, what I want to ask you first is tell people what you'd like them to know about you, because I know you, but not everybody who's here today watching does. So what would you like people to know about who is Ellen Finkelstein?
Sure. Well, I created my first website in 1999. Now I'm hearing some feedback. Is that a problem?
If you have headphones, you might try putting headphones in.
No, I do.
But right now, I don't hear feedback.
Okay, good. Sorry. So I started my first website in 1999 as an author platform. And for those of you who are authors, you know what it means. But if you don't, about that time, publishers started asking authors to have a, quote, platform, which basically meant we want you to market yourself, and we're not going to do it all for you. And part of the reason for that was the world was changing, going more online, and the publishers had no clue how to do it. They were so focused on getting books into bookstores that they really didn't know any other way of doing it. So, of course, in 1999, there wasn't a lot of other stuff around. You had to use HTML. You had to do it yourself. I started actually hard coding and gave that up pretty quickly. But so
that doesn't sound like
I've been online. Yeah, no, it's not. And I've been online for a long time. And in 2011, I did a course in my hometown, Fairfield, Iowa, it's Southeast Iowa, and on internet marketing. And so I created a new website called ChangeTheWorldMarketing.com. And what I did was I created that website step by step, showing them how to create their own website. And then I just realized I loved this stuff so much, I just kept it on. And it's now a second business for me, where I basically teach people all the stuff I learned how to do over the past many, many years. And there were two reasons that I really had to do my business online. One was when I started, I had small kids, so I needed to stay home and make a living at home. And the second one was the fact that I live in Fairfield, Iowa, which is a town of about 9,000 in the middle of corn and soy fields. And you know, it's half an hour to the next town and 4.5 hours to the next city. And so there wasn't anything local at all. So I needed to go big. I needed to use the internet. And that's really why I started doing webinars, because everything would have involved a lot of traveling. And I had kids at home. So I think that brings us kind of to the topic of today, which is webinars.
And so I've been a guest on Ellen. Ellen has a show called The Star Power Half Hour. And I've been Ellen's guest. Just to give you some background, I usually tell you how I've met my guests. And Ellen and I think we first met again on social networking, on Facebook, and then we both attended an event called NAMS, which is Novice to Advanced Marketing Systems. And so it's always great to make those connections and that meet in person, and then help your colleagues along by hosting them like today's Blab. But Ellen, as you've heard, has been doing webinars and has been successful at it in terms of, one, generating income, and two, building her list. So Ellen, why don't you share with people some of, why are webinars great for engaging and for interacting with your audience, different than something like today's Blab?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about, I want to go further back in history, actually.
Sure.
Because I think webinars are an amazing platform for you to get your message out to the whole world. And just like the Gutenberg's press made it possible for mass numbers of people to have,
You're good.
Made it possible for mass numbers of people to read books and increase the level of literacy of mass numbers of people. And moving, I'm sure there are other things as well, but moving forward to the internet, how the internet enabled everyone to be a publisher. So I'm an author, and I think like that. And all of a sudden, like Wikipedia is a good example, how anyone could put all of the knowledge that they had online, and people actually started to do it. And it was this a mass thing that happened all over the world, that people put their knowledge online and to get it out to the world.
Mm-hmm.
So those things were all about text pretty much, and maybe a few images, and they weren't a Wikipedia or something or a blog. It's not a live thing. You write it out and then people read it later. So the first thing that happened after that was teleseminars. And how many of you remember teleseminars? They were a big thing at a time, about 10 years ago. They were a big deal. And
there are still some out there.
There are still some out there. But they're telephone calls, basically conference calls. And so it's all audio. And what webinars did was add the visual component. And as you probably have heard, the visual component is a very important thing. You know that when you create blog posts, if you add a picture to it, people are more likely to read it. And if you add a picture to a social media post, people are more likely to read it and like it and share it, so on like that. So the visual component is really important. But what's happened recently, only in the last few years, has been the ability. So most webinars were basically your voice and slides, and that was the visual component that webinars added, and they were usually slides. But only in the last few years, what was added was the webcam. You're seeing my face here, and you're seeing Deborah's face here, and it's so much more. And I think that there were first things that there was Ustream and live stream, and those were some of the first tools where people could live stream themselves, very similar to Blab actually. But anybody could go onto the website, kind of how the way people get onto this after it starts. You have to go onto the Blab website and you see what's live. And live stream and Ustream are like that. They've been around for a while. Webinars made it possible for you to combine your voice, the webcam recently, because that's been added, slides, and you could also use the chat so that people could ask and answer questions. They could be interactive. Just so many things have gotten put together in one place. It's absolutely amazing. And you can use webinars in many, many different ways. And so one of the things I wanted to share with you, I know because Deborah's been posting about it, how I got so many new subscribers in a week. Yeah. So this was, I had a new course, and it was called High Persuasion PowerPoint Presentation Program. And it was, in fact, it was very related to this because it was all about how you could use the visual aspect of slides, make slides really visual, and use the knowledge that advertisers have known for years and years, this whole thing that we talked about, how images are so much more powerful to engage people, but also more persuasive. And so how to create slides that do that, and for many people, that means in webinars, and that was the course. And I connected with two people. One was Michelle Shane, and she teaches Camtasia, which is a screen capturing and video editing program. And the other was Josh Turner, and he has Linked University. He's a LinkedIn expert. Yeah. And so in the week I was launching this, I had webinars. They both sponsored me. They both hosted me for webinars to their people. And both of them are incredible marketers. So I don't know about you guys, but when Michelle tells her list about a webinar, 300 to 500 people sign up. And Josh, so I think she got 500 people and Josh got 300 people. That was basically how the 800 came. And so I did it, and we sold a lot, and it was over $9,000 in sales, and all of this in 1 week. And that 800 people, they were all people who had not been on my list before. So it was just in that 1 week, I got 800 new people on my list, and that $9,000 in sales. We sold, I guess, about 94 copies at $97 or something. So that's about $10,000, $9,000, $10,000. So that's an amazing thing. Now, you can't do this all the time, because in order to do that, you have to connect with really good marketers. But that's the point, is that, see, Michelle, for example, she teaches Camtasia, and everybody who uses Camtasia uses PowerPoint. And so my product was about PowerPoint. And Josh also talks about the power of webinars because he uses them so much in his own business. And so he wanted his people to hear about how to improve your webinars. So that was what a lot of what the product was about. So when you get the right partners, and that's something I do want to talk a little bit more about in terms of the value of partnering with somebody. And when you use a webinar in the right way to sell a product, which means that you provide people with great information that they can use right away, and then your product is a natural extension of that information, then it's an amazing type of thing.
It's an amazing tool. Well, and the nice thing about webinars too is, unlike TV and radio, if you were to do some advertising on there, it costs a lot of money. A webinar, especially if you are somebody else's guest, isn't really costing you anything but your time, and the preparation that goes into it. And so one of the nice things about webinars is reaching that broader audience without taking a big chunk out of your budget. Since we talk about cost-effective marketing, and millionaire marketing on a shoestring budget, that's a great way to get there. So why don't you share with people some of it? You mentioned, affiliate marketing, which is partnering with somebody, having someone like Michelle or Josh that hosts you because they're also an affiliate or a joint venture partner. Why don't you share that with some of our viewers?
Right. So when you do that, the only reason those people are going to share their lists with you is because they will get a commission for that product. And so even though I sold $9,000 worth of product, maybe a third of that was for not affiliates. So the other 2/3 was through those affiliate partners and a couple of others, and I gave them 50% of it. So that's the partnership that works. It's a two-way partnership. I get something, I get new people to my list, and I get to sell my product, and they get commissions. And it's always has to be a win-win type of situation. And I do want to say that there's another side to it, that it's true that it doesn't cost me anything when I speak for somebody else's list, but in return, they're probably going to want to speak to my list, in which case I do also have to have my own
appropriate software
webinar service. And I don't know if you want to go into it so early, but one of the things we could do is talk about the different types of webinar software and what I use and why. You want to talk about that?
Sure. People might want to know, why don't you start off with what you're using now, which is, I believe, Zoom, because I don't know how many people who are tuned in today understand or know what Zoom is. So why don't you share that, because that's the one you're using currently.
Right. So I started off with GoToWebinar, and I used it for many years. It's fairly expensive. So it's $99 to reach 100 people. And then sometimes you need to reach more than 100 people. So for example, another time I did something with Michelle, and I forgot to up my account above 100. And that's not a good thing with Michelle. She will always bring you more than 100 people. So, and if you go up to 500 people, then I think it costs $399 for that month. And it goes up to 1,000 people. It's $499 a month. So I was looking for something else. And so my friend Sheila Finkelstein, who's not actually related to me, but same last name, she introduced me to Zoom, and we used it on a one-to-one basis for one-to-one meetings for a long time. And so I started investigating it because I really liked the interface. And they have a webinar module, and you can actually reach up to 3,000 people, although I've never gotten that many people online at one time. I've had one time, I'll tell you the story. I had one time 3,000 people registered for a webinar. But so that was another kind of webinar situation that I'll talk about. But I just found out that Zoom was much, much less expensive and had some features that I thought were better. And one of them, because we're talking about engaging with people, one of the big things was that you could have the slides, and it'll have the webinar the webcam in the corner, just like GoToWebinar, but GoToWebinar doesn't record that webcam piece. They put it on what they call a transparent layer. And so that's not great, because I want people who watch the recording to have that engagement of, seeing me.
Seeing you. Yeah.
Yeah, I want you to see me. So Zoom does record that. So I think that's a better feature right off the bat.
So let me
And there are
make
a
sure
couple
I
of other
understand.
things.
You're saying Zoom records, if you have PowerPoint, it records your PowerPoint, but it also records you, an image of you.
In the corner. Right. Mm-hmm.
So people can get to see you, which is what I like about speaking, is the connection and the engagement. So that's great.
Exactly. And in fact, you can even change the size of the webcam. You can make it bigger if you want, so the slides are a little bit smaller and you're bigger. There's a fair amount of variation to it. And it does also record not only the MP4 file, but it records an MP3 if you want to make something just audio. So it really has some nice features. And I also want to compare it to Google Hangouts. And the reason I want to compare it to Google Hangouts is that they're free and they can reach an unlimited number of people. And those are great features. And I actually did a group coaching course on webinars, and I was comparing GoToWebinar and Google Hangouts on Air. And the day that I was going to do the one on Google Hangouts on Air, I practiced it. Well, I practiced it the night before and tested everything. And then I got on, and they had changed the interface for how to embed something or something. I think it was like the embed feature.
Not good.
There. When you pay for something, they send you out when you're having a paid account, they send you out an email and tell you what they're doing. Google doesn't do anything like that. So it turned out it was there. They had put it in like a sub menu under an icon that I didn't know what it meant. And I got around it by a very circuitous thing. I went on to YouTube. I started the actual Hangout 15 minutes early, went on to YouTube, which is where the recording shows, and then embedded it from YouTube.
Oh my gosh.
And that was how I got it.
You have to really understand technology to be able to do that.
Yeah,
I mean,
Otherwise,
just getting here on the Blab sometimes is, enough. Which is one reason.
I was
well, so, that's, just to sort of tie in Blab, because some people have contacted me and saying, Blab could be a great webinar platform. But with Blab, one right now, you'd have to figure out a way to get people to sign up so you can build your list. People can connect with you on Twitter and follow you on Twitter. But as most of us know, you don't own your fans and your followers. You own the email. So, and Blab, you can't make it private. So anybody could jump on to your webinar at any time. So I don't know if that's, Blab is still in beta phase. It's been a few months now, but lots of times, like you were saying, so far when you go on a Blab, there have been a few times there's been some technological glitch, but Blab is on it. You can put a message in the comment section to somebody at Blab, and they come help you right away, which is not something.
That is cool.
Yeah, I mean,
at least nice.
2 or 3 times I've needed them. There's a woman by the name of Brittany. She jumps on. If she can't do it, she gets somebody else for you. So you can troubleshoot right then and there, which is not something, as you mentioned, that you could do with Google+. Google didn't even tell you, that there were changes.
Exactly.
So for those of you who are just jumping on board,
right?
Yeah, it is
that's a very nice.
So for those of you who are jumping on board, we have a few new people that are here. This is Ellen Finkelstein, and Ellen is talking to us about the power of webinars and how to leverage webinars, one, to reach a broader audience, to engage with people, and to build your list. So she's just been going over a couple of the platforms that she's used in the past, which are GoToWebinars and Google Hangouts, and now she's using something called Zoom. I'm going to put a link in the comment section for you that has access to a free module that Ellen is offering to you. So it's changetheworldmarketing.com/get-started, and you can go check that out, and courtesy of Ellen with her compliments. So Ellen,
I want to say something. Can I say something about that? I just want to say that when you go there, you'll need to subscribe to my email list, and you'll get a lot more than just something about webinars, but you'll get something called 13 Steps to Creating an Online Business. But there'll be 4 little videos, and one of those videos is a training about webinars. So that's the connection.
Okay. Someone is saying that they're getting a lot of echo. So do you have headphones on, Ellen?
I have earplugs. Yeah,
Earplugs?
there's nothing. It's
Let me go see if I can track down my earplugs and see if that will help. Um, yeah, and Nancy's saying she's kind of newish to Blab, and aren't we all? So in essence, yes, because, Blab is still in beta phase. So lots of times I come on and there's something new on the screen, or they've changed something. So they used to just tell a little bird. Now you can tell your friends on Facebook. And actually, when they first started with tell your friends, it said tell your aunt. It didn't say tell your friend. So they have a sense of humor.
That's good. Good.
And Jill says,
so why don't you go? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, somebody is saying that they figured out that the echo is coming from another Blab window. I don't know whose Blab window that is, but for right now, we're good to go, I think. So
Okay.
talk about, Ellen, why are webinars a unique way to expand your list and your profits?
So you can do webinars in different ways. I was talking before about using a free webinar with a affiliate partner who brings their list to the webinar, and then you can at the end make an offer. And in that case, you sign people up. So there are a couple of different ways to get people on your email list when you do a webinar. In fact, I would say there are two ways. Basically, either you have your own opt-in page on your own website. That's an opt-in, and people go automatically to your email list. And when it's for an event, I would strongly recommend you use single opt-in, not double opt-in, because you'll lose a lot of people. And for an event, people get really frustrated, 5 minutes before, but I didn't get the email. How do I get on? You don't want that. So you just want people to get on right away.
Well, can I stop you for a second there? Because that kind of depends on who you're using as your email provider. Whether or not there'll be a double opt-in.
No, you can usually set it. So for example, for Change the World Marketing, I use Aweber, and you can set it list by list. So you create as many lists as you want, and you can have I would recommend a new opt-in, a new list with a new name for the webinar. So a new opt-in form, and then you can set that to single opt-in. And another one that I use is Mad Mimi for my other lists, and they also let you set it to single opt-in. So most places do let you do that. It's just too frustrating for people when it's an event. It's not unusual. Some of you listening now might have heard about this just in the last half hour. And so it's too difficult for people to double opt-in right before an event. And it's just very frustrating.
Well, I find it's difficult in general, even if it's not an event. If somebody's requesting your free report, I find, or even I've been at events where somebody will opt in.
Here's my mom, everybody. Here's my mom. Hold on. Let everybody see my mom. There she is. Hi. So her name is Deborah. Her name is Deborah.
Deborah? Yes, something to say.
Evan will have it. Okay. Close the door, Mom. Okay.
Bye, Mom. So Robert here. Yes, it looks like that, Nancy. So Robert is saying, that you've made a great point about having a separate list for the webinar, because that makes it easy to follow up later and to create that engagement. You can then have some follow-up emails that say thank you for attending the webinar, and take it from there.
Right.
So that's a great point.
It's almost necessary, because you want to tell certain people register for it, but they don't all come. And so you want to tell people about the recording, and you don't want to tell everybody necessarily about the recording, because they weren't interested. If they didn't register, they weren't interested. Exactly. So you need to have that separate list. So I mentioned that one way is you can sign people up on your website, and then you can use an autoresponder or the follow-up email to give them the link to the webinar, and that's how they do it. So another way to do it is to send them to the registration feature of the webinar service. It's another way to do it, and then the way you do it that way is you export that into your email service, and then you have your separate list. And there are different reasons for doing it, but the main reasons for doing one or the other, the main reason to have it on your own website is to capture affiliate links. So for example, I have an affiliate program that gives lifetime cookies, and the first referrer wins. So if somebody sends somebody to me and they listen to the webinar, but they don't buy the product, they're still captured. So if they in my list, in my membership software, and so if that person buys something from me later, that affiliate will still get an affiliate commission.
Right.
And that's very attractive to affiliates. And so by bringing them to my website, because I have the affiliate program associated with my website, I have the affiliate program as a WordPress plugin on my website, then I can do that for my affiliates.
So you're saying you have Zoom as a WordPress plugin or something else?
Digital Access Pass, which is my membership program, and I have my affiliate program through that. So by bringing people to my website, they get captured that way. And you miss that if you send them directly to the webinar software. So it depends just depends how you want to set it up. Another reason to do it on your own website is if you want them to pay for a webinar. So there are a free webinar selling a product is only one kind of webinar. So I haven't, So I'll tell you about another thing. I have a webinar series that I've done for 6 years now. It's called Outstanding Presentations Workshop. And I do it in the fall. And when the first 2 years I did it, it was free. And let me tell you, free is magical. So the first year I got 1,800 people to sign up. And the second year, this is my all-time record, 3,000 people from 97 countries.
Awesome.
And I know that because I asked people when they registered to put in their country. And it was an amazing thing. And that was also that I gained about, not all of them were not from my list, but I gained about 1,000 people from that in that 6 weeks from that webinar series. Now, after that, I thought, well, if I could get 3,000 people to sign up, so I'll charge them $7. And this was like a 7-series webinar series, guests and very well-known people in the field. And so I'll do that, and maybe I'll get 1,000. Well, I got 500 for $7. It went from 3,000 down to 500.
500 when you started charging.
Yes, when I started charging. But the point is that I needed to put it on my own website. They needed to sign up my own website because then I wanted them to pay for that.
Right.
So that's another reason to sign people up on your website.
Gotcha. So let's talk about for a second, while you were talking, Nancy made a comment about these are called funnels, aren't they? So we were talking about when you get somebody who signs up, gets on your list, but they may not buy now, they buy later. Do you want to touch on the idea of, funnels? It's a popular word in the internet marketing world.
I suppose it is. So yes, if you a funnel is connected to a few things, but specifically a funnel is connected to autoresponders usually. So what that means is when somebody signs up for your newsletter on your subscription list, they get a series of autoresponders, which are emails that are set up automatically, so you don't have to individually set them out. They get one immediately, they want maybe one after 2 days, maybe one after 5 days. You set it all up, and you start by usually. So one of the things that you can do is right away, you can offer people something that's very low cost, just in your thank you. Thank you for signing up. You're going to get an email that you need to confirm, but while you're waiting, for $1, if you're willing to put out $1, I'm going to give you all of this stuff. So that's one part of your funnel. And then after that, the funnel represents different products at different price levels. And as you send people autoresponders, you might offer them something fairly low cost and then something maybe higher, and up to, let's say, your top product, which might be one-on-one coaching or whatever it might be, your mastermind program, something like that.
Something like that.
Now, another series, another funnel is, and another kind of autoresponder is product autoresponders. And you do this in a different way. It's not done directly through your email service because it needs to be done through a mechanism that knows when somebody bought something. And I do this through my Digital Access Pass, which is my membership program, but it's also like my shopping cart. You can do it through a shopping cart. So when somebody buys something, then you might get something after welcoming them and kind of helping them to get to know what you have available. You might say, well, since you bought this book, then, people who bought this book, or, like how Amazon says people who bought this also bought that. So you can kind of do something like that and continue to offer them different things. So, and that's basically your funnel, is just your different levels of products that you introduce people to, usually via autoresponders.
Awesome. Well, I want to open up the seats. If anybody has questions, you can jump on board and ask Ellen and meet Ellen face to face. So there is an open seat. Feel free to do that. And if nobody jumps on board, then we can just keep talking about, how webinars work. We've got Ray's podcast jumping on here. And let me just tell you that Ray is a Latino talk radio on demand. He does inspiration and entertaining. So come on up, Ray, and hi there, Ray.
Hey, Deborah and Ellen, how are you? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, and I'm so sorry I've missed most of this conversation, but I wanted to touch base with Ellen about, there's so many services out there, too many to count, right? But
yes,
in terms of, just your overall thoughts about, for the newbies, if there's some you prefer, or the people kind of on the higher end, but, it just trying to figure out which webinar service to use nowadays can be very confusing. And I'm particularly interested in the ones that interface well on our websites, because one of the things I'm frustrated by some of the services I'm seeing is that, it takes you away from our page, which is something I want to avoid at all costs. So just your general thoughts for people new, these different services out there.
So the one I use, we did talk about this a little bit earlier, and I talked about GoToWebinar and Zoom, and both of them do take people off your website. They're not embedded by nature. The only one I've ever used that lets you embed is Google Hangouts on Air. And it depends. I'll tell you why I can't use it. One of the reasons I can't use Google Hangouts on Air anyway is that it has a long lag time. When you embed it, and that's about 15, 20 minutes. So if somebody asks a question, you don't get it 15 to 20 seconds later.
Minutes?
Yeah,
wow.
15 seconds, 15 to 20 seconds.
But
when you embed it, that goes up to at least a minute. So if you're just talking and you're not interacting with people, it's okay. They're just seeing it a minute later, and it doesn't make any difference. Everything I do is very interactive. And some of the work that I do is PowerPoint training. So I'll be clicking something and I say, so now I'm clicking this and I'm drawing this shape, and then I'm going to animate it by clicking here and clicking here. Well, even a 15 to 20 second delay of the video over the audio, it just doesn't work. I need almost no delay. So GoToWebinar and Zoom are both extremely good like that. There's almost no delay.
Zoom? Okay.
Yeah, I use Zoom. I'll give you if you
if you go to
that's my affiliate link.
So, and also if you go to my current blog, you'll see Ellen wrote a blog about some of that as well. And look in the comment section, Ray. You'll see the URLs in the comment section.
Okay. Great. No, that's helpful.
Yeah. So the thing that that's one thing I like about Zoom is it's very fast, and it records really nicely. It records, as I mentioned earlier, it records both the slides and the video. Unlike GoToWebinar, it's less expensive than GoToWebinar. I find it a lot more reliable than Google Hangouts on Air. Google Hangouts on Air, besides, I mentioned the thing about how they'll just change the interface without warning you. But one of the other things that it does is it works on an account basis. And so sometimes people just can't get in. They kind of try to log in and it says, it's not there, and people just can't get in. Instead of working on a URL basis that anyone can get in without having to log in.
Awesome. Well, we lost Ray. He went offline there, but this is somebody who, again, I've met online. We've never met face to face, but I have to ask you, Jill, is it Jill or is it Jilly?
It's Jilly. My given name is Jill. What happens on Twitter, it cuts you off. So I put Jill, Jess, and Smith, so it has my whole last name in it. Because, once you start out there online with something a little different, all of a sudden, a couple of years down the road, hundreds of other people are using the same thing, So I thought it was so unique. All my good friends called me Jilly. My mom used to say, Jill. So to start
when she was mad.
Yeah, when she was mad. So I just kind of went that way. And then it made me a little different. There are other Jill Smiths out there. There's quite a few actually. So I went this direction about 10 years ago, and Twitter cuts you off. So you can only put so many digits at this time.
Right. So Jilly is calling us from Tucson. Do you have a question for Ellen?
I am really glad you covered the issue of PowerPoint, because as I've upgraded all my computers to Windows 10, things changed. One of my computers couldn't access the old PowerPoint anymore, and another one does just fine. And I love PowerPoint because it's so, I just been using it for so long. So I just was really glad to see that that's still really super functional, and I can just pop in and use that maybe with new tools and just figure out why it's not working on one of my computers after Windows 10. But
it should work. I have on this computer, this laptop, because I'm at my mother's house, I'm working on my laptop. And because I teach PowerPoint, I have on this computer, and I just upgraded to Windows 10, PowerPoint 2003, PowerPoint 2007, PowerPoint 2010, PowerPoint 2013, and PowerPoint 2016, which just came out.
Oh my
all
God.
at once. That's not easy to do. Let me tell you, it's a little scary.
Oh, and
anyway,
Ellen knows I'm ancient. I'm still on I don't know what version of PowerPoint, an old one.
An old one, yes.
So I guess we got to do some work.
Yeah. So just a little tip
Okay.
is that all of that probably for financial reasons, although they don't admit it, but like Adobe and like other companies, Microsoft is moving to a subscription model. Mm-hmm. And all of the new features are starting to come out for people who have the subscription model. And I think you can get Office now for, I don't know, $6 or $7 a month. It's really fairly inexpensive. But what's so cool about it is that you always have the latest thing. So it's not like you have a version. You just always get the new features. And they're coming out with these
Can I ask you about that? So you're saying they will just upgrade you? They won't continually charge you to get upgraded?
Exactly. Okay. That's the whole concept of the subscription model. Well, it's really worth it, I think. And they have 2 new features that are coming out now that are really amazing. One's called Designer and one's called Morph. And Morph is like tweening and Flash. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's ultra cool. So it's definitely worth it to do that. The thing about PowerPoint is that when you do a webinar, since we're talking about webinars, slides are usually a big part of it. And one of the things I teach. Yeah. And so one of the things that I teach is how to create, not to do death by PowerPoint, not to put the text on the slides and read it. So that's the thing that turns people up. There are surveys on this. So I'm not just making this up. Audiences, that's the number one thing they hate is when people, whether on a webinar or in a live presentation, when people put all the text on the slide and then they read it. And their attitude is, I can read, just shut up and let me read. And so you don't want to put the text. This is counterintuitive. You actually don't want to put the text that you're going to say on your slide.
On your slide.
Oh, I know why.
Go ahead.
It's sort of like handing out handouts at the beginning of a meeting. It distracts everyone. They read ahead, they think they know everything, and then they're not paying attention to you.
Exactly. And so when you do that on a slide, people can read faster than you can talk. And so they read through the slide. And how are they not going to read through the slide? You just put it up in front of them. And so, of course, they're going to read the slide. And there's a fair amount of research that shows that people don't listen and look at, they can't hear and read at the same time. In fact, some of that research has been used to create laws against using cell phones in cars because people are listening, they're not really looking at the road. And so they're not hearing you while they're reading. So they read through the whole slide, they don't hear what you say, and then when they finish, they do turn their attention to you and they find out that you're saying stuff they already read. So why should they listen to you again? So again, they're not gonna listen to you. So it's
well,
just
and that's something
crazy.
Robert just put in the comments. You know, he's like, if they're reading the slides, then they don't have any reason to listen.
Yeah.
Because they're, you know, using their other senses to read.
And of course, the other thing is that you're losing out on the persuasive value of images, on the power of images that you can put on your slides. You can make slides that are so powerful, that are so persuasive, that are so even intense by just using strong images. And you could put some words on a slide. You could put, like, in the title of the slide, a few words there that people can read in a second, and then they get the point of the slide. So I teach something called the tell and show method, and it's based on some research that this guy Michael Alley did. He's an engineering professor at Penn State in the engineering school, and he called it assertion evidence. So imagine you're teaching engineering like he is, and you make an assertion at the top of the slide, and then you show the evidence for it. He's talking engineering. And so I call it tell and show because I think it's a spiffier of an expression, but it's the same concept. So you tell the point in a title, and then you show the point. You show it in some way. And you can show it with a picture, but it might be a map, it might be data, it might be a graph, it can be anything, but you have to show people what you're saying. And that's where the power of images comes from, you know, on your slides. And in terms of a webinar, it makes your webinar much more powerful. And then when you can put the webcam next to it, as we were talking earlier, when you have the webcam, it's like being in the room with somebody. It's very close to that experience where they can see you. You can use your hands like that. You can use your
that
hands.
is one
You
of
have
the
the
parts of
expressions.
engaging. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
So yeah. So that's the whole experience that a webinar can be, and how it can be so engaging, and how you can at the same time reach so many people. Like I was saying, 3,000, not all those 3,000 people actually attended because they were from 97 countries around the world. So a lot of them watched the recording, but you can reach so many people from so many countries in a webinar like that and actually really engage. And that's why I went through that history a little bit, going back to, you know, Gutenberg's printing press, is that I think webinars are an amazing tool for engaging large numbers of people. And of course, we also talked about how to use them to sell products if that's what you're doing.
Well, I feel so validated because I'm in Tucson.
Yay.
I love Tucson, but sometimes I feel like, you know, we're catching up, but really slowly. But I've been to meetings in the past 3 years even, and they're doing like this, PowerPoint, and then people are so bored and they're falling asleep, and I'm like, come on, you know, I just love
That's by PowerPoint.
you know, you can make this fast.
But, you know, I think PowerPoint is still important because of what we've been talking about, because of the imagery.
Yep.
You know,
Leave all
there is a way.
I'll shut
Yeah. No, that's okay.
Yeah. So just speaking without slides is something that lots of people do. So, you know, public speakers often speak without slides. Politicians usually speak without slides. Although one of the things I noticed is that in the when President Obama in the last two State of the Union messages has had vertical slides on the side, which have been kind of really interesting to show some of the data, some graphs and things like of the data. But usually politicians don't use slides. So, that's one way of speaking. It's public speaking. But when you're doing a webinar, it's usually a little bit different. You want a little bit more interaction, and especially if you're selling something, you want to hear the responses of people so you can, talk with them. So, and often you want to give information that's hard, that you want people to remember it. So here's the difference between politicians and giving a webinar. Politicians don't really want you to remember all the facts that they say. They don't really care if you understand or you remember. They are trying to persuade you, but they're not trying to teach you, especially, that kind of thing. But in a webinar, when you're providing free information, you want people to understand and remember, and then also agree with you. And so it really helps to show people you can do it's much more like training. Politicians aren't giving you training.
Well, I'll also add something to that. You don't want them to just remember, you want them to interact with you as well. Yes. A politician is usually up there giving his talk and doesn't want the questions until after he's done.
Yeah.
And then they'll choose people maybe in the audience, or she will choose people in the audience that they feel maybe safe with. But, the beauty of a webinar, and actually the beauty of Blab, is the ability to engage, and whether that's engaging face-to-face like we are right now, or engaging by putting a comment in the comment section, or asking a question, or telling a little bird and tweeting, or, so there are many ways to create that engagement. So, and that's, I think, a big difference with, politicians.
By the way, Go ahead. Absolutely. I want to tell everybody here that just because what reminded me of this is you saying, well, tell a little bird, do this, is that I just, before we started, I did a search on my email to find if you would give me any specific instructions for getting on. So I did a search for Deborah Jason. And for the last 3 weeks, it was like, post it on Twitter, post it on Twitter, post it on Twitter, post it on Twitter. So you are so amazing, Deborah, in terms of how you promote events. And so if anybody is looking for help to promote your event, I want you to hire Deborah.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But, when you talk about like affiliates and JV partners, when I've gone and I've spoken somewhere, even if I'm not an affiliate, I always promote, and people say, wow, you do a great job. None of our other speakers ever do that. And I'm like, why wouldn't they? And if I'm hosting, like I host the Blab, why wouldn't I get the message out there? Because I don't want my guests to show up and have just me being there. And I was on a Blab the other day, and it was just the person hosting and her guest and me. And I felt bad. So thank you. Thank you for that, little affirmation. I appreciate it, but it's something
I had that experience. Was impressed over the whole period of time with all the promotion that you did. I don't know how you find time to do anything else, but it was pretty amazing. But just just beforehand, I really had that experience of doing the search on my email and just seeing all the tweets and the LinkedIn and Facebook and all the promotions that you had done. I wanted to talk about.
And that's something hard. Well, one of the things, since I talk about millionaire marketing on a shoestring budget, those are great ways to market. They do take you time, but they don't take much in the way of a big budget. So what were you going to say?
So I wanted to talk about another way of doing webinars, which is the one you mentioned at the beginning. So I just wanted to make sure we covered it. Because so far I've talked about doing a free webinar, which you promote a product at the end with an affiliate, with a joint venture kind of thing. We talked about that. And we talked about a multi-speaker event, which was that outstanding presentations workshop, which I started for free. And then I started charging. And that was also both of those were amazing, have been amazing ways to grow my list. So I wanted to talk about a third way so we can get complete here.
Okay.
And that's the event that you were on, Deborah, which is Star Power Half Hour. And it's quite similar to what you're doing with Blab in the sense that it's weekly, and you have guests each week, right? So it's similar to that. I use Zoom, so it's definitely a webinar, and people usually use slides. Although I do have a guest who told me he wasn't going to use slides. He's not going to use slides when he does it, but usually they do, and they are affiliate links. So it's a little complicated, but they're promoting their product, and I'm their affiliate. So if through what they do, we sell something, then I get an affiliate income, but a commission. But they also promote the event on their side because they're my affiliate. So the other way around. And even though the events are free, there is an upsell for people to get access to it forever. And there's that funnel that we were talking about before. So if they put people onto my list and those people buy something later on, they get the advantage of that income. So and so that has grown my list more slowly. It wasn't a big sudden thing, but about almost 900 people now over about 9 months. So, and it's, it's a free thing. I'm doing it for building my list, and people love it. So what's so cool about it is people keep on thanking me for making all of these webinars available, because the whole premise behind it is that in that half hour, the guests should provide some knowledge that people could use right away. So it's not just fluff and it's not just selling. There's always some useful information. And then when you provide that useful information, then people often feel like, yes, if the person sounds like they have the expertise, yes, I'll go and buy something. So I just wanted to mention that third way of doing it, especially since it's kind of similar to yours.
Well, and I've been a guest on the Star Power half hour. And actually just was at the beginning of this month, Ellen, you featured a replay of my appearance where we talked about copywriting mistakes and how to avoid them. So, it's great. And again, just like you were mentioning, I go out and I promote that. I tell people, hey, come watch the replay. Right. And
I know we made it one new sale. I don't remember exactly, but I know I noticed it, at least one
there
new
were
sale.
A couple of sales there, yeah. Because what people were asked at the end was if they wanted to get a home study program about how to sharpen their copywriting skills. So that's another great way that I'm glad you mentioned to people. So
I'd like to know if anybody I was going to ask if anyone has a question about the whole process of setting up a webinar, promoting a webinar, writing the script, creating the slides, creating the product, delivering the product, following up, because those are basically the whole thing. So if you have any questions at all about any part of the process, ask. Go ahead, Julie.
Which platform online have you found to be most effective for the webinars that you're presenting? And does it differ between the subject matter? Does Twitter work better, LinkedIn, depending on your experience? What has showed up to work?
You mean not for the webinar? You mean for promoting it?
For promoting it. Yeah.
So yes, it definitely makes a difference, and I will promote on all of them for everyone I do. But if I do something on the side of PowerPoint where the people who are going to come are basically working in companies, then I'm going to spend a lot more time on LinkedIn and a lot less time on Facebook. Yeah. So definitely you want to, any promotion, and Deborah's an expert at that. You want to.
Well, and I'll add something to that.
Yeah.
Besides LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and Google Plus and Instagram, I believe Ellen also does this. You email your list.
Yeah.
Of course, right.
Because even though they're already on your list, you still want to let them know, because you never know who they will tell about it.
Right.
So,
it overlaps.
And I'm careful. Yes. And I'm careful with my list. So, for example, I have two main lists that are relevant here. One is at ellenfinkelstein.com, which is all about PowerPoint and presenting, and another one at changetheworldmarketing.com, which is all about internet marketing. So my list at the PowerPoint one is much larger, but they're mostly corporate or even government or that kind of thing. But occasionally I will send to them something that has to do with change the world marketing if I think it's relevant to them. And I'll say something like, even in the subject, I'll say, this is only for you if you use PowerPoint to promote your business or something like that. And then, and that will take out all the people who are using PowerPoint for training or for some other purpose, internal presentations, but some of them are doing sales or whatever, or they're in a small company, or they're speakers and they're using PowerPoint, but they have to promote their own business. So you have to be careful how you cross promote as well.
So there's a question here, Ellen, from Peter. Peter's here in Colorado. He said, what is the best ratio of content and time to actually closing the deal, and what is an ideal price point?
So if I do an hour webinar, I would have at least 50 minutes of content. I wouldn't have 50 minutes of content. I would have at least, because there's going to be introduction time and question and answer time. So, but I would say I would only make the promotion at the end, the offer, 10 minutes, and the rest would be the rest of it. Now, one of the things that you can do is go overtime. So
well,
if people are asking lots of questions.
Well, I've been on webinars where the offer is not 10 minutes. The offer is like 40 minutes, and the webinar goes an hour and a half instead of an hour because they're busy pitching and pitching and pitching and pitching.
Yeah, I know somebody who does that.
Yeah.
I think I know who you're talking about. But
well, there's a few people. There's not just one.
Yeah. So I have a little bit of a problem with that. I think
style.
With that style. So I think you provide a lot of information. So the art of it is that you don't give away everything, you don't say everything, and that what you give is valuable enough that people realize the value of what you have, they see your expertise, and that your product helps them fulfill that promise, so to speak, of the value that you've explained. So when for example, High Persuasion PowerPoint Presentation Program, the free webinar is called High Persuasion PowerPoint Presentation Secrets. And I talk a lot, like I did today, about the power of imagery for persuasion. And I give some research and I tell them why it's so important. And I show them how to create those tell and show slides. So I give them something they can use right away to create powerful slides. But then at the end, I say, well, we didn't talk about your content, how to write persuasive content. We didn't talk about that, your script. And I didn't give you really any information about how to format your images. I didn't talk about so there are all these things I didn't talk about, and that's what this program goes into. Now, in terms of the ideal price point, there's definitely no one answer to that. And so for Star Power Half Hour, because it's a half an hour, and because I know my list, we go.
Uh-oh, I just lost you. Ellen froze up on me.
From $10 to $47. That's
could be
$97 or $497 or $997 to explain the value of that. You need more time. And Deborah, I think when those examples that you were talking about, when the pitch goes on for 40 minutes, those are usually higher priced products. Yeah. And so you do need more time. You do need more time to explain it. You need to go through in detail what people are getting, or they're not going to spend that kind of money. So I guess I've seen webinars that went from more than 997, but that's unusual. But it definitely happens.
It happens. Yeah.
So So it depends on how much time you have and what you think your list will be interested in.
Okay, we need to wrap it up soon. Did you have one more question, Jilly?
Yes. I have, when you talk about length, I found, Deborah, that your length of your emails are just spot on. There's when you're talking about how things go on and on, I could suggest to everybody that's online, and many of you probably already know all this, but I still receive these emails from people that they have a product and they scroll on and they go on and go on and they go on, and their website goes on, and I end up deleting it because it's just it's oversaturated. And so my suggestion, as a busy woman who knows about email and enough, that you do keep it a little shorter, put a big image or not an image or a link to an image, it gives you a little taste. And do keep it shorter. I'm finding that they're old style, from when people first started on the internet and they put all their information in their email that goes way down, or their website, their page goes way down, and you can't even find well, what's the deal here? Where's the call to action? And
it's funny that you say that, because yesterday I gave a presentation and we were talking about sales pages. And, some sales pages, if you were to print them out, could be 20 pages long. The thing is, for those, and it kind of goes to what Ellen was just saying, it depends on the price point. But many of times they work, and that's why you keep seeing them. Yeah. If it doesn't resonate with you and you leave, well, then you're not the right audience for that target. But, they do work, unfortunately, for those who say, they're too long. But long copy over short copy many times does do it, if you're resonating with your audience. If you're pushing their buttons, and offering them a solution that they go, I need that. So
I do want to say something about webinars in this context. Two things. So number one, when you invite people to the webinar, and wherever you promote it, whether it's in your email or in social media, you're basically explaining a little bit, the title of it and 5 points that you're going to get. It's not a whole lot of copy. It obviously has to be enticing. But then when you send people to an opt-in page, you actually often get better results if it's just short. So many days to the webinar, and here maybe a little video or just the list of points and opt-in, because people, it's free. Especially when it's free, and it's easy, so you just want people to not have to think too much about it and to opt in. And then when you have the webinar and you're promoting something, you are going to send people to a sales page, but because you explained almost everything in the webinar, you don't need so much text in the sales page. You actually don't want people to double think it again. You want people to go from the webinar, go, yes, I want it. They click and they buy. And so it actually changes the whole location of the sales process. And that's what's so nice about speaking is a very powerful way to sell compared to using just the text on a sales page.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you, Jilly, for being here today. If everyone looks in the comment section, I just put 3 links. One link is to Ellen's complimentary download. The other 2 links are her websites. Ellen, why don't you tell people how they can reach out to you in addition to what I put there?
Well, absolutely feel free to just go to my website, which is changetheworldmarketing.com, and click contact rather than just giving you my email address. Just click contact and I'll get an email. So if you have any questions about webinars, go ahead and do that. So the link is there, and definitely do that. And definitely I invite you to sign up for my newsletter. My newsletter is different. Thank you. My newsletter provides actual information because my blog posts provide lots of information. So if you go to my blog, you'll be amazed at how much content there is about how owning an online business and the technology and the strategy of it. So I provide lots of information. I do sell things as well, but I think you'll find it of really good value. And that's when you sign up, as I mentioned earlier, one of the videos you're going to get a PDF, which is the 13 steps for creating a successful online business, but you're also going to get 4 videos, and one of them is specifically about webinars. It was a training that I did on webinars. So awesome. I'd love to have you.
Oh, thank you.
Great. Well, thanks you, Jilly, for being here. Thank you, Ellen, for being on the Blab. Here, you can hear it again. Blab. I am Deborah Jason. This is the Marketing Blab with Deborah. Next week is Thanksgiving, so there won't be a Blab. And the week after that is my birthday week, so I won't be blabbing. But on December 11th, for those of you who are familiar with Bob Berg, the author of Go Giver, he's going to be my guest. And to us on December 18th, Robert Nissenbaum is going to be my guest. So those are a couple of blabs that I have lined up. And I, again, am the author of Millionaire Marketing on a shoestringbudget.com. And you can find me at deborahjason.com. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ellen, for being here and taking time out of your day. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and letting Ellen share her wisdom with us. Have a fabulous weekend and a heartwarming day, and here's to your sweet success. Thanks again, Ellen.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you for having me. Thank you for everybody on and the great questions and your participations. And everybody should go buy Deborah's book because it's a great book.
Well, thank you for that. And just a reminder, there will be a replay of this on the Blab channel, on my Blab channel, as well as on YouTube. So thanks again, everyone, and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
By the way, if anyone wants